I thought I had everything, until the man across the street made me question every promise I ever made and every secret I thought I'd buried. I experienced a resurgence of vitality. From the very beginning, I sensed a magnetic presence in him that stirred emotions I had long suppressed. Perhaps it was the manner in which they presented themselves, that subtle assurance, the deep resonance of their voices, the sight of their hands appearing robust enough to construct universes, yet gentle enough to cradle a woman's heart. For years, I concealed that yearning, hiding it behind courteous smiles and Sunday gatherings. I embraced my role, the devoted wife, the ideal neighbor, the woman who possessed all that one could ever desire. Yet, hidden beneath the surface, a flame flickered, a restless longing I hesitated to acknowledge, not even in the depths of my own mind. My husband, Robert, was a good man, solid and dependable. He embodied the virtues of hard work, prudent saving, and the ritual of mowing the lawn every Saturday morning with unwavering precision. Life in our quaint Texas town was a tapestry of simplicity and charm, woven together by manicured lawns, warm greetings, and communal gatherings at the church hall. Yet, in the stillness of the night, as I lay beside Robert, I frequently sensed that I was more a specter than a spouse. Then, he took up residence across the street, in the old Miller house that had stood vacant for nearly a year. His name was Darius Carter, a figure of height and strength, with skin that shimmered like polished bronze beneath the blazing Texas sun. When I first saw him working on his car under the intense July sun, something inside me stirred unexpectedly. It felt as though a long-buried fragment of my being had shattered, yearning for breath. In that moment, clarity washed over me. My existence was on the brink of transformation, poised to shift in ways I could scarcely imagine. If you've ever sensed a flicker of passion within, a yearning you believed was long extinguished, remain with me, for what unfolds next transcends mere storytelling. It serves as a poignant reminder that the life we believe we have constructed can disintegrate in an instant. If you seek a tale that ignites your emotions and provokes your spirit, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. A wealth of possibilities lies ahead. On the day our paths first intertwined, the sun blazed with an intensity that was relentless. It was one of those Texas afternoons when the air hung heavy, almost tangible, and the sun blazed down relentlessly, drowning the landscape in a symphony of cicada cries. I had vowed to remain indoors, yet destiny, or perhaps something more potent, beckoned me to the front porch. There he stood, Darius Carter, bare-chested once more, sweat shimmering on his broad shoulders as he leaned over the hood of his truck, muscles taut with each slow, purposeful motion. I lingered for a moment beyond what was prudent, observing him intently. I reassured myself that it was merely a matter of innocent, neighborly curiosity, nothing beyond that. Yet my heart pounded fiercely within my chest, revealing my inner turmoil. Drawing in a breath I hadn't known I was holding, I descended the steps, traversing the slender patch of grass that lay between our homes. "Hey there," I made the call, trying to keep my tone as breezy and relaxed as possible. He raised his gaze, and for an instant, the universe condensed to the mere expanse that lay between his deep-set eyes and my own. "Well, hello," he remarked, drying his hands on a rag while offering me a slow, perilous smile. "You are undoubtedly my neighbor." His voice resonated deeply, a luxurious, velvety timbre that appeared to vibrate in the dense atmosphere. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, acutely conscious of how my sundress clung to my skin, dampened by the oppressive heat. "Emily Parker," I said, extending my hand. He grasped it in his large, warm, calloused hand, holding it for just a heartbeat longer than required. "Darius Carter," he uttered, and there was a certain cadence in the way he pronounced my name, slow and deliberate, that sent a shiver down my spine. For a fleeting moment, we remained still, enveloped in a silent connection, the sort that conveys a universe of meaning without the need for spoken language. In that moment, I ought to have taken a step back. Perhaps I ought to have conjured an excuse, dashed indoors, and secured the door behind me. Yet, I found myself smiling, and with divine assistance, I chose to remain. Following that initial encounter, it felt as though the cosmos was relentlessly orchestrating our paths to intertwine. Wherever I looked, he seemed to be right there. On certain days, I would catch him laboring on his truck, his shirt discarded, jeans slung low on his hips. At other moments, he found himself in the yard, tending to the sparse grass, beads of sweat shimmering on his skin under the relentless Texas sun. What? About me? I discovered justifications, absurd and tenuous, to be outdoors, tending to my hydrangeas despite the soil being thoroughly drenched, inspecting the mailbox thrice daily even with the certainty of its emptiness, and strolling my elderly Labrador around the block even when the heat hung heavy in the air. Anything, merely to steal a fleeting glance. At times, it manifested as a mere nod, accompanied by a fleeting half-smile. At other moments, it was something deeper, a fleeting touch of fingers as he returned a fallen newspaper, a gaze that lingered, leaving me feeling exposed beneath my sundress. As I turned the corner of my driveway, my mind adrift in contemplation, I almost crashed into him directly. His hands gripped my arms, strong and unwavering, preventing me from faltering. "Be cautious, Emily," he murmured, his tone soft and laced with a hint of playful mischief. I gazed into his eyes, profound, shadowy, infinite, and for a fleeting moment, we remained utterly still. His steady hands briefly held my arms, and the moment felt longer than it should have. My pulse throbbed in my ears, a flush creeping up my neck. I muttered a few words, the specifics lost to memory, and rushed back inside, my heart pounding and my knees trembling. That night, as I lay in bed beside Robert, the lingering touch of Darius's hands on my arms remained. The echo of his deep voice still resonated in my ear. For the first time in years, I closed my eyes and smiled. As Robert eased the car out of the driveway, a surge of exhilaration enveloped me. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't fear. It was a restlessness I hadn't felt in years. I ventured outside, feigning interest in the mailbox despite its emptiness, and there he stood, Darius, once more without a shirt, scrubbing his truck, water cascading down the contours of his physique, shimmering in the warm glow, as if he had been anticipating my arrival. "Could you use some assistance with that?" I called out, my voice faltering ever so slightly in my throat. He raised his gaze, a perilous smile twisting at the corners of his mouth. "Are you making an offer?" he remarked, flinging the sponge into the bucket and striding toward me, droplets of water still clinging to his skin. I chuckled, gasping, unrestrained. "I doubt I could offer much assistance." "You'd be astonished," he murmured, his voice a soft embrace, enveloping me like velvet. "Would you care to join me for a drink?" We understood it was never truly about the drink, yet I nodded in agreement, and just like that, I found myself stepping inside with him. As the door clicked shut behind us, the atmosphere around us became charged, heavy with anticipation, and undeniably potent. "You've been teasing me for days," Darius murmured, stepping closer, his hands slipping into the curve of my waist as if they had always belonged there. "Just admit you don't desire this," he murmured softly by my ear. I was unable to, and I didn't even make an attempt. Instead, I pressed closer to him, presenting my lips, my form, my yearning spirit that had long been neglected. In that moment, I found myself swept up in emotions I hadn't anticipated. His presence alone made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt before. I grasped him tightly, my fingers sinking into his back as he effortlessly lifted me, pinning me against the wall. He embraced me in a way that overwhelmed my senses. The world whirled in a dizzying dance, hues merging into a swirling tapestry as time melted away into a fog of warmth and feeling. With each kiss, each gentle caress, and every soft whisper against my skin, the weight of years spent in solitude began to dissolve, revealing the warmth of connection I had long sought to overlook. When he finally claimed me, right there, against the wall, the air thick with the intoxicating blend of sweat and desire. It transcended mere physical encounters. It was a profound convergence of souls, a journey of reclaiming fragments of my being that I had long believed were lost to time. Long after our bodies had quieted, after the echoes of release subsided into gentle, labored breaths, I found myself cradled in his embrace, experiencing a vitality I hadn't felt in decades. In the stillness that ensued, a singular truth took root within me. The point of no return had been reached. Following that initial evening, we found ourselves unable to resist. We didn't make an effort at all. With every opportunity that presented itself, we seized it with a growing emotional intensity and a bold abandon, akin to two souls who had endured a prolonged famine. At times, it lingered in the dimly lit corner of his living room, the blinds drawn halfway to shield against the blazing sun. At other moments, I found myself in my kitchen, my back pressed against the cool marble counter, overwhelmed by a quiet thrill of stolen moments. Morning light spills softly, afternoons stretch languidly, and fleeting moments weave themselves amidst the bustle of errands. Each meeting ignited with an intensity that surpassed the previous, rendering us both emotionally breathless and shaken. The shyness had vanished, replaced by a bold certainty. It was unrefined, immediate, and unrepentant. Darius would discover me in the corridor near the front door leading to the backyard and draw me into his embrace, as if driven by an uncontainable force. Each kiss became a skirmish we willingly embraced, every touch a flicker that erupted into a blazing inferno. The first time he led me to the stairs, positioned between the first and second floor, it happened so abruptly, so fervently, that I scarcely had a moment to inhale before he was lifting me, holding me close as though I were the sole treasure in existence. Our desire for one another was insatiable. Even in moments of utter fatigue, when our thoughts blurred and our hearts pounded from relentless emotion, the pull remained unyielding. It only became more acute, more perilous. Amidst it all, the exhilarating cloak of secrecy enveloped us, a second skin that shielded our truths. Just across the street, Robert remained blissfully ignorant, the ideal husband in his flawless home, utterly unaware that his wife was gradually unraveling with each passing day. I ought to have experienced guilt. Shame should have washed over me. Instead, all I experienced was a profound sense of vitality, more vibrant than I had ever known in my entire existence. Following that initial evening, we found ourselves unable to resist. We made no attempt whatsoever. With every chance that presented itself, every fleeting moment of opportunity, we continued to spend time together, drawn by something that felt increasingly impossible to resist. At times, it resided in the dimly lit corner of his living room, where the blinds were drawn halfway, shielding against the relentless blaze of the sun. At other moments, I found myself in my kitchen, my back against the cool marble counter, overwhelmed by a quiet thrill of stolen moments. Sunrise hours, midday pauses, fleeting interludes amidst the hustle. Each meeting ignited with an intensity that surpassed the previous, rendering us both emotionally breathless and shaken. The shyness had vanished completely. It was unrefined, immediate, and unrepentant. Darius would locate me in the hallway near the front door leading to the backyard and draw me into his embrace, as if driven by an uncontrollable force. Each kiss became a skirmish to which we both yielded, every caress a spark that flared into an inferno. The first time he led me to the stairs, positioned between the first and second floor, it happened so abruptly, so fervently, that I scarcely had a moment to inhale before he was lifting me, holding me close as though I were the sole treasure in existence. We were utterly captivated by one another. Even in moments of utter fatigue, when our thoughts blurred and our hearts pounded from relentless emotion, the pull remained unyielding. It became increasingly acute, more perilous than ever. Amidst it all, the excitement of secrecy enveloped us like a second skin, the awareness that just across the street, Robert remained oblivious, the ideal husband in the ideal home, entirely unaware that his wife was gradually losing herself with each passing day. I ought to have experienced guilt. Shame should have washed over me. Instead, all I experienced was a profound sense of vitality, more vibrant than I had ever felt throughout my entire existence. It began with a soft murmur, entwined in the warmth of the aftermath. Darius's voice caressed my ear like the finest silk. "What keeps you by his side, Emily?" he inquired, drawing languid circles along my hip. "You are worthy of so much more." I chuckled softly, dismissing the pain those words ignited within me. Yet he refused to release it. "You're squandering your existence," he remarked. "Everything you desire could be within your grasp. The abode, the wealth, liberation." I pivoted to meet his gaze, probing his eyes for a glimmer of humor. Yet there was nothing. "What if," he murmured, his tone calm and unwavering. "Did we truly bring it to fruition?" My heart pounded fiercely within the confines of my chest. Apprehension, exhilaration, allure. It was chaos, unethical, beyond comprehension. And yet a tiny, mischievous voice within me responded in kind. "What holds us back?" The strategy extended beyond mere financial transactions. It needed to possess greater intelligence, a more nuanced approach. Initially, I persuaded Robert to establish a joint credit card for unforeseen circumstances. I presented an image of responsibility, establishing automatic payments and monitoring balances. He placed his full trust in me. Next arrived the expenditure. Initially modest, essentials for sustenance, maintenance of the home. Next, I envisioned larger, boutique clothing, indulgent spa treatments, and weekend getaways to ease my stress. Perpetually defensible, perpetually evading his notice. Darius instructed me in the art of shaping the narratives. I redirected a few bills to a P.O. box, the box he arranged. Payments lingered just long enough to accumulate late fees. We monitored the increase in interest rates. Robert scarcely registered it. Overwhelmed with tasks. Overwhelmed by stress. Whenever he expressed his worries, I offered him my reassurance. I volunteered to handle it, induced a sense of guilt within him for his lack of trust in me. As the initial debt notices began to trickle in, I feigned astonishment. I even shed tears. "Surely, this is an error," I remarked, quivering fingers clutching the long-awaited correspondence. "I assure you, I will make it right." In the shadows, while he remained blissfully unaware, Darius and I were quietly draining the savings account. Transaction by transaction, hidden under layers of financial misdirection and false paperwork. By the time Robert came to the unsettling realization that the mortgage had slipped into 3 months of delinquency, that our finances were draining away, it was already too late. The harm had been inflicted. He found himself submerged in a sea of financial despair and emotional turmoil. There I was, poised at the water's brink, my gaze fixed on him as he descended into the depths. Robert lingered for a moment before departing. Initially, he made an effort to resist. He dialed the bank in a frenzy, pleading for extensions, exhausting his final credit card merely to secure the mortgage for yet another month. I observed in silence as he battled, day after day, the burden of it all suffocating him from within. And I fulfilled my role flawlessly, appearing supportive on the outside while subtly encouraging him to consider the possibility of a new beginning elsewhere. In a place distant from the ruins. "Peace is what you truly deserve, Robert." In the stillness of the night, I leaned closer, my hand resting gently on his arm, my voice quivering with a feigned intensity. "Perhaps the moment has come to release what no longer serves us." Initially, he put up a fight. Indeed, he did. Ultimately, the weight of the debt, the burden of shame, and the toll of exhaustion shattered his spirit. On a somber gray morning, he carefully packed a solitary suitcase. "I need to go," he said hoarsely, avoiding my gaze. "The air has grown too heavy for me to linger any longer." I lingered by the window, watching him fade into the distance, his figure diminishing in the rearview mirror of my fresh existence. Behind me, Darius stood in anticipation, anticipating the moment to take full advantage of the path we had prepared. Yet, paradise was never destined to endure. Not when it rose from the ashes of what once was. It began with hushed tones, clandestine phone conversations, and texts he kept hidden from my view. Evenings when he quietly left the warmth of the sheets, citing urgent matters that demanded his attention. Initially, I chose to overlook it, I reassured myself that it was merely a figment of my imagination, a fleeting sense of paranoia. Yet, beneath the surface, the familiar, piercing instinct coiled within me. He conceals a secret. On a particular night, I chose to follow him. My heart raced as I followed his truck down the shadowy, dusty lanes of our small town. He maneuvered his vehicle into a spot behind a modest motel on the outskirts of town. I remained motionless in the shadows, observing as he stepped out. And then she emerged, youthful, beautiful, all that I once was. She chuckled softly as he greeted her, holding her in a way that brought back memories. I witnessed him kiss her, a deep, ravenous embrace, reminiscent of the way he once pressed his lips to mine on our kitchen counter, against the walls of our cherished sanctuary. I stood there, the night air heavy and oppressive, witnessing the man for whom I had sacrificed everything bring about my own ruin in turn. In that instant, every deception, every act of treachery, every drop of blood I had shed to forge my new existence came tumbling down around me. I was not extraordinary. I was merely a fleeting moment in his journey toward something, or someone, greater. The fury within me blazed with an intensity one had never known before. And I understood that this was far from finished. That night, I chose not to confront him. I refrained from screaming. I did not plead. Instead, I lingered in silence, observing intently. The house, the accounts, the papers, they remained tethered to my name, a lingering reminder of what once was. The following morning, as Darius lay in slumber, I took the decisive step of changing the locks, contacting the bank, and severing his access to all that he held dear. As he staggered back to the door later that day, a whirlwind of confusion and fury swirling within him, I greeted him with a calm, unwavering smile. "It is finished, Darius," I declared. "Your desires have been fulfilled. It's time for you to leave." He seethed with fury. He issued a threat, yet I remained steadfast. Ultimately, he had imparted his lessons with great skill. Place your faith in no one. Do not love anyone. Above all, ensure that no one possesses the ability to bring about your downfall. He departed in due course, a duffel bag casually draped over his shoulder. The same self-satisfied expression vanished from his visage. I possessed the house, the wealth, my autonomy. Yet, as I lingered in the stillness of my triumph, gazing upon the vacant corridors of the existence I had once envisioned, it dawned on me that I had emerged victorious. Yet, I found myself stripped of all that once held significance. At times, the cost of treachery extends beyond the mere loss of what you possess. It's a gradual erosion of your essence. If this narrative resonated with you, be sure to express your appreciation, share your reflections, and subscribe for more authentic, unfiltered tales like this one. There is an endless story waiting to be unveiled. There is always more to discover.